Hi everyone, my name is Abhiraj Garikapati. Welcome to my YouTube channel Amazing Abhi. Solo leveling is packed with tons of strong characters, so that's why we'll go over every single known ranked hunter in today's video. But first, if you didn't know, hunters are ranked using the E to S system, with E rank being the weakest and S rank being the strongest. But there's actually an even higher tier called the national level hunters, and these are the top 5 strongest hunters in the entire world. And they're so powerful that even regular S ranks can't compete. Oh, and did you know that only 0.01% 1 in 100,000 of the world's population even awakened as hunters, and out of those only 0.2% 1 in 2 million end up being C rank or higher. Alright, let's start talking about the E rank hunters, and of course we gotta start with the most famous one of all, the former weakest hunter of mankind, Sang Jin-woo. Now he's definitely not an E rank anymore, but before he got the system, Jin-woo was literally the weakest of the weak. He could barely handle the easiest monsters and almost died on every single raid he joined. But despite that, he kept showing up raid after raid because he had no choice. He needed money to support his sister and pay his mom's hospital bills. The only reason he even survived these raids was because Lee Ju-hee kept healing him every time he got injured. Still, he was basically useless in every single raid. The only other known E rank hunter is Han Song-yi. We first saw her as part of Jin-ho's raid party as she had just dropped out of high school and hoped to make some quick cash as a hunter. But truth is she wasn't strong at all. We literally never even once saw her fight. But during the Red Gate incident, after having a terrifying near-death experience, she realized the whole get rich as a hunter dream wasn't realistic for someone like her. So she went back to school to finish her education. Alright. Moving on to the D rank hunters, and first up is probably the most well-known D rank in the entire series, Yu Jin-ho. Jin-ho came from a super rich family, so while he wasn't all that strong, he had the absolute best gear money could buy. But here's the thing, Jin-ho didn't want to fight on the front lines. His dream was instead to become a guildmaster, working behind the scenes. So, after Jin-ho saved his life, Jin-ho asked him to help clear 19 more C-rank dungeons, since you need to clear 20 in total to qualify as a guildmaster, and Jin-woo had already taken down Burura. From there, Jin-ho became Jin-woo's best friend and his right-hand man. And hey, even though he's not the strongest, he's not totally useless. He was strong enough to shield an elderly couple from falling debris during the Tokyo crisis. Next up, we've got Kim Sang-shik. Kim was one of the hunters in the double dungeon with Jin-woo, and actually showed he had some solid sword skills. But when things went south in that nightmare of a dungeon, he panicked and bailed, leaving Jin-woo and the others behind to save himself. So at first, he came off as a total coward, but later on, he genuinely regretted it and tried to make things right. Sadly, before he could, he was stabbed to death by Kang Tae-sik, a B rank hunter we'll talk about later. Another D rank hunter at the double dungeon was Park Byom-shik. Park was a solid fighter class hunter who used dual axes and could hold his own in normal raids. He was also a good friend of Kim's, but sadly, he wasn't as lucky as Kim, as Park was one of the 11 hunters who died during the double dungeon massacre. Talking about hunters who lost their lives in the double dungeon, let's not forget Ju Ji-hyun. Right before that raid, Ji-hyun had just signed with a major guild and was seen as a hunter on the rise thanks to his ability, enhanced speed, as he could move at superhuman speeds and took a lot of pride in how fast he was. But unfortunately, he was still nowhere near fast enough to outrun the statue of God, as the statue zapped him on the spot when he tried to make a break for the doors, burning him to ashes. The last known D rank hunter we've got is Kang Yong-ho. Just like Kim Sang-shik, Yong-ho was one of the 6 survivors from the double dungeon. As a hunter, he was seen using a mace and later a two-handed warhammer, and while his class was never officially stated, he definitely came off as a tank with that brute strength. Sadly, though, surviving the double dungeon didn't mean much in the long run, because during the dungeon and prisoners arc, Yong-ho was killed by Kang Tae-sik, just like Kim. Moving on to some stronger hunters, let's talk about the C ranks. And first up is the one and only Hwang Dong-suk. Now yeah, Dong-suk was an arrogant, greedy scumbag, but to be fair, he was also a pretty solid C-rank tanker, as he could use enhanced power to buff his physical stats, making him even tougher and stronger, but all that strength couldn't save him. As the leader of a C-rank raid party, Dong Suk tricked both Jin Woo and Jin Ho and left them to die, so he could keep all the loot for himself. Yeah, that was a huge mistake. As Jin Woo wiped out his entire squad, absolutely smashed Dong Suk into the ground and then finished him off without breaking a sweat. Talking about Dong Suk's squad, let's get into his right-hand man, Cho Koo-won. Just like the rest of the crew, Koo-won was greedy and had no issue murdering weaker hunters if it meant making some quick cash. And to be fair, he wasn't useless. Koo-won was actually a decent fire mage, and he even managed to knock out half of Jin Woo's health with a single fireball. But unfortunately for him, that only made Jin Woo mad, as after Jin Woo got back on his feet, he took out this skilled mage like it was nothing, slicing him to pieces. Continuing with Dong Suk's squad, next up is Gu Juntai. Juntai was a C-rank hunter and probably a fighter type, but honestly, the only memorable thing about him is that he was the very first person Jin Woo ever killed, as Jin Woo straight up decapitated him with his dagger. Another member of Dong Suk's squad was Lee Chul-jin. After Juntai got taken out, Chul-jin tried to get revenge by attacking Jin Woo. Yeah, bad idea. Jin Woo stabbed him with his dagger, which triggered the weapon's bleed effect, and Chul-jin ended up bleeding out right there, on the dungeon floor. Finally, not a member of Dong Suk's squad, we've got Go Myung-hwan. Go was a pretty weak C-rank hunter from the White Tiger Guild who ended up in the Red Gate incident, and because of his low rank, Kim Chul threw him into the weak group with Jin Woo, which of course turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to him, as Jin Woo carried the team and saved everyone, making Go one of the few survivors of the Red Gate incident. Another C-rank hunter who actually also survived the Red Gate incident was Yoon Kaijon. Now you actually won't see him in the anime as he was literally cut entirely, but in the ManHWA, he was part of the group who got paired with Jin Woo because of his low rank. And after Jin Woo cleared the dungeon, Kaijon was seen crying in relief as he finally made it out of the gate and back to the real world. Finally, everyone's favorite C-rank hunter, Song Chul-yul. Chul-yul was actually a beast for a C-rank. Not only could he cast powerful fire magic, but he was also a master swordsman thanks to his skills in kendo, basically modern Korean swordsmanship. And fun fact, he was actually even the one who taught Chahain how to fight with a blade. He was also strong enough to go toe-to-toe with B-rank hunter Kang Tae-sik for a while, and that's exactly why he was put in charge of the squad during the double dungeon raid. Chul-yul was also one of the few survivors from that nightmare, even though he was willing to sacrifice himself for both Jin Woo and Ju-hee, but not just during the double dungeon, but also during the fight with Tae-sik. Also, after losing his arm during the double dungeon, he refused to get it healed, choosing instead to keep it as a reminder of his failure as a leader. Alright, leaving the C ranks behind and moving on to the B rank hunters, we've got to start with Kang Tae-sik. Tae-sik was a B rank assassin and part of the hunters' surveillance team, meaning his job was to hunt down rogue hunters. But yeah, he also had a side job, being a hitman for hire. So, this dude was a literal psycho. As a hunter, he was insanely fast, strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Jin Woo at the time, and even resisted the paralyze and bleed effects of Kusaka's Venom Fang. He could also use stealth, making himself invisible to sneak up and kill his targets, just like he tried to do with Jin Woo. However, during their fight, Jin Woo eventually overpowered him and landed a clean stab to the chest. But Tae-sik actually didn't die bitter or angry, accepted his defeat and with his last breath, fully acknowledged Jin Woo's strength. Now let's talk about Lee Ju-hee. Ju-hee was a pretty solid B-rank healer who could even use buff magic, like when she gave Jin Woo a haste boost during his fight with Tae-sik. She was also one of Jin Woo's closest friends, kind-hearted, caring, and always looking out for him during raids. Before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Appy grow naturally. And like I said, she's literally the reason he's even alive right now. But after the trauma of the double dungeon and everything that happened in the Dungeon and Prisoners arc, she decided to retire from hunting and went back home to live a more peaceful life. Still, even though she's literally got PTSD, During the 4th Jeju Island raid she stepped up and helped out. The last known B-rank hunter is Park Heejin. Heejin is a mage type hunter who first showed up during the Red Gate incident, and right away, she knew Jin Woo was built different. The second he caught that ice elf's arrow mid-air, she instantly knew he was at least an A rank on the spot. And even though she pops up a few more times throughout the series, we actually never see her in a real fight. Still, she's a fan favorite, so it's always cool whenever she shows up. Alright, let's get into the A-rank hunters, and who better to start with other than Woo Jinchul? Jinchul is one of the top A-rank hunters in Korea, and honestly, he's borderline S-rank. We saw just how strong he was when he stepped in and shut down a fight between the S-ranks Baek Yun-ho and Hwang Dong-soo. Sure, they held back, but the fact that Jinchul could stand between them without flinching says a lot. That said, Jinchul usually isn't on the front lines. He's the chief inspector of the Hunters Association's surveillance team, which means his job is more about keeping tabs on other hunters, and yeah, that can get intense. Like, this is before inspecting Jin Woo's raid, and this is after. Still, he's a genuinely good guy, and he and Jin Woo have a lot of mutual respect, and he's also one of the few people Jin Woo actually trusts. However, an A-rank hunter Jin Woo definitely didn't respect was Kim Chul. Kim was a tanker type hunter and the leader of the White Tiger Guild's raid squad during the Red Gate incident. But this guy was incredibly arrogant, and he looked down on anyone who ranks lower than him. He also had no problem leaving weaker hunters behind to die, literally calling them dead weight. Now, to be fair, Kim was strong. He went through special training, was set to join the White Tiger Guild's elite team, and even soloed a group of ice bears with ease, swinging around a shield the size of a door. Still, all that strength didn't mean much when he tried to fight Jin Woo, who first literally just slapped him into the ground, and then eventually took his life. Next up, we've got Sung Kihun. Kihun was a solid tanker and the leader of Strike Squad B from the Hunters Guild. Unlike the cocky and selfish Kim Chul, Kihun was actually humble, level-headed, and genuinely looked out for his team. And during the Hunters Guild arc, he showed off some serious durability, taking a direct hit from a high orc that shattered his shield, and even surviving after being heated up and down by Kargal Gan. So yeah, he didn't get to flex his full strength since the enemies were way too strong, but he easily earned Jin Woo's respect. Now, let's continue with the Hunters Guild Strike Squad B and talk about Han Semi. Semi wasn't just kind and chill. She was actually one of the strongest healers in Korea. And during the Hunters Guild arc, she proved that support hunters are just as clutch as the frontliners. As when one of her teammates got their arm completely severed by a high orc, Semi didn't panic. She instantly just regenerated the entire thing. Yeah, just goes to show how crazy good she was at healing and how vital support hunters are in high-level raids. The next member of Strike Squad B is Gina, a serious, no-nonsense mage who doesn't mess around. Her skills are so good that even Choi Yong-in, the top mage in Korea, recognizes her talent. She uses telekinesis to control and launch objects, blasting enemies from a distance like it's nothing. And Gina's telekinesis is strong enough to hold a high orc in place, which definitely proves she's way more powerful than your average mage. The other mage from Strike Squad B is Lee Bora. Just like Gina, Bora is a seriously strong mage, and her specialty is summoning magic. She could summon giant worm-like beasts, strong enough to hold down a high orc, which is no small feat. But Bora wasn't just strong, she had crazy good senses too. She could instantly tell that Kargal Gan was way out of their league, and she also sensed Jin Woo lurking in stealth when he was aura farming. Now, one of the strongest hunters in Strike Squad B is none other than CEO Jai Woo. CEO is a fighter-class hunter who, despite her crazy strength, actually struggles with self-confidence. But don't get it twisted, she loves to fight. CEO is a hand-to-hand combat beast, using her super speed and brute force to completely overwhelm her enemies. She even landed a punch so hard it left a massive hole in a high orc, and she's also incredibly tough, tanking hits that would have dropped most hunters. Alright, moving on from Strike Squad B, let's talk about Lee Min-sung. Min-sung is an A-rank hunter who also happens to be a famous Korean actor. As a hunter, he was strong enough to smash a table with one hand, and on top of that, he was super popular with the public. He always came off as humble and kind on camera, but behind the scenes, yeah, Min Sung was actually arrogant and selfish, and he only became a hunter to dodge military service. So he joined the Field Guild, and he even showed up to the Jeju Island raid just for publicity points. But the second things got real, he froze up in fear and totally panicked. So he's just all talk. Now onto an actual strong air tank hunter. Let's talk about Park Jong-soo. Jong-soo is the guild master of the Knights Guild and a very strong tank. You once blocked an attack from a twin-headed ogre like it was nothing, and he's also surprisingly fast as he dodged Hanakawa's attacks in their sparring match like it was no big deal. But what makes him stand out is his light blue energy shield that he can summon. It's huge, durable, and makes him a seriously powerful frontline fighter in any raid. Talking about Jong-soo, we gotta talk about his right-hand man, Yoon-Ti. Yoon-Ti is the vice guild master of the Knights Guild, and he's crazy loyal to his boss, Jong-soo. This guy is always hyping Jong-soo up. For example, during that sparring match with Hanakawa, Yoon-Ti just kept going on about how amazing Jong-soo was. But don't get it twisted, Yoon-Ti's no slouch in combat. He's a solid swordsman, able to blind a twin-headed ogre with a single swing and even land a clean hit before the thing could react. Since we mentioned Hanakawa, let's talk about her next. Hanakawa is a fighter-type hunter from the Draw Sword Guild, and she mainly relies on speed to overwhelm her opponents. On top of that, she also works as a translator for the Japanese Hunters Association. That said, Hanakawa has got a bit of an ego and tends to look down on weaker hunters, like Park Jong-soo compared to Hoojin, but that cockiness backfired, as during their sparring match, Hanakawa got wrecked by Jong-soo, mostly because she lacks real experience fighting other hunters. Now we've got Yoon Soo-hyun. So Haeyeon's not just a super famous Korean actress and model, she's also Jin Ho's cousin, and yep, she's part of Jin Woo's Ajin Guild too, as after getting totally rizzed by Jin Woo, she agreed to join the guild as their non-hunter member, since she's mainly focused on her acting career anyway. But just because she's not out there fighting in dungeons doesn't mean she's weak. Soo-hyun's a solid ranged type hunter who fights with a rifle, so when she's on the battlefield, she absolutely knows how to handle herself. The last known A-rank hunter is Yoon Yurim. Yurim is a healer from the Knights Guild, but she's not just about healing. Yurim can also use a skill called Sacred Shield, which lets her summon a big golden magical shield that's tough enough to block serious attacks. Finally, getting into the insanely powerful S-rank hunters, let's start with Baek Yoon-ho. Yoon-ho's the guild master of the White Tiger Guild, and while he's a fighter-type hunter, his real specialty is transformation magic because when he goes all in, he transforms into a tiger-like beast, white fur, sharp claws, glowing eyes, and terrifying fangs. And in this form, his strength and speed skyrocket. However, if he doesn't want to go full beast mode, no problem. Yoon-ho can partially transform, choosing to upgrade just certain parts of his body, depending on the fight. Moving on, let's talk about Choi Jong-in. Choi is not just the guild master of the Hunters Guild, but he's also known as the ultimate hunter, and once you see his fire magic, it's pretty clear why. Choi's flames are crazy powerful. He can literally wipe out entire battlefields in seconds. Just look at the Jeju Island raid, he's out there vaporizing swarms of ants like it's nothing. He's got some awesome moves too. Before we move ahead, please take a second to share on this video. Sharing helps this video reach friends who may also enjoy anime, gaming, travel, cricket, chess, career basics, or personal stories. Your support helps Amazing Abhai grow naturally. Like Flamethrojin, where he forms a massive fire dragon that torches everything in its path, and Flamethrojin, a huge net of flames that works for both attack and defense. So Choi is hands down the strongest mage-type hunter in Korea, and he's implied to be on par with Yoon-ho in overall strength. Continuing with the range-base hunters, we've got Lim Tae-gu, the guild master of the Fiend Guild and an absolute beast with a bow. This guy is a ridiculously skilled archer, sniping enemies with pinpoint accuracy and hitting their weak spots like it's nothing. But what really makes him stand out is that he can instantly create magic arrows from his hands. And these things aren't just for show. They're strong enough to tear through the Ant Queen's skin and one-shot ants. So yeah, Tegu is no joke. Next up, we've got Ma Dongwook. Dongwook's the guild master of the Fiend Guild and an absolute unit. And he isn't just insanely strong, his durability is wild. Like, he can take near fatal hits, keep standing, and continue to fight back. Just look how he refused to back down even against the Ant King. But what really makes him stand out is his gigantication ability. He can double in size during battle. Okay, maybe it's not that crazy, but it still gives him a big boost in strength and toughness, making him a super reliable frontline tank in any raid. Another super reliable S-rank hunter was Min Byunggu. He wasn't just a healer, but he also had the combat power of an A rank. But yeah, when it came to healing, he was a literal miracle worker. He instantly saved both Yun Ho and Ma Dongwook after they were poisoned by the Ant Queen, and he even regrew Dongwook's arms in an instant. He could also use buff magic to boost the team stats, and he had a disguised ability that basically made him invisible so he could heal from the shadows. The only downside is that he couldn't move while using it, which made him an easy target if anyone managed to sense him. And that's exactly what happened during the 4th Jeju Island raid. The Ant King tracked him down and killed him. The saddest part is that Byunggu didn't even want to be a hunter anymore. He had already retired wanting to become a history teacher, but came back one last time to help. Talking about why Min Byunggu didn't want to be a hunter anymore, we got to bring up Yunsok. Yunsok was one of Byunggu's closest friends along with Yunho. He was a mage-type hunter who used lightning magic and could hit multiple enemies at once with wide-range spells. He even used dual claws for close combat, so yeah, the guy was strong. But during the 3rd Jeju Island raid, he was completely overrun by the ants and didn't make it out. And his death hit Byunggu hard, and it's one of the main reasons he stepped away from being a hunter altogether. Moving on, we've got everyone's favorite Cha Hayin. Cha is the vice guild master of the Hunters Guild, but let's be honest, she's way stronger than Choi Yongin. Don't just take my word for it. Though, even Godu Yujin, the strongest hunter in Japan, said she could give his top hunters a serious challenge. And during the Jeju Island raid, the Ant King himself saw her as the biggest threat and went after her first, which says a lot. Cha's got lightspeed swordsmanship, slicing through enemies with pinpoint precision, and her ultimate move, Sword Dance, cranks her attack speed to crazy levels, making her fight like she's literally dancing through the battlefield. So she's hands down one of the strongest S ranks out there. Her only real weakness is that she's got a crazy sensitivity to mana, which makes all hunters and monsters reek to her except for Jin Woo. Someone even stronger than Cha is none other than Song Ilhuan, Jin Woo's dad. Back when Magic Beasts first appeared, Ilhuan gave up his career as a firefighter to become a hunter, and he quickly became one of Korea's very first S ranks. But 10 years before the main story starts, he got trapped in a dungeon during a raid and was presumed dead. But instead of dying, he was actually saved by the rulers, who gave him their power and told him to assassinate the new Shadow Monarch. The twist? Well, that new Shadow Monarch turned out to be his own son, Jin Woo. But thankfully, the rulers had a change of heart and ended up siding with Jin Woo as Ilhuan couldn't go through with it. Now, let's talk about his strength, because this man was insane. First, he absolutely clowned Huang Dong-su, who's already a super strong S rank. Then he literally fought both the Beast Monarch and the Frost Monarch at the same time. And yeah, he held them off. So yeah, Ilhuan wasn't just strong, he was probably the second strongest hunter in the world, right behind his son. Moving on, we've got Go Gunny. Most people know him as the chairman of the Sun Jinwoo. Jinwoo went from being the weakest hunter of mankind to the strongest being in existence. Literally, as after he got the system during the Double Dungeon, Jinwoo was the strongest hunter in the world. Sadly, because of his old age, his body just couldn't keep up anymore, and he was forced to retire early. Alright, now to the one you've all been waiting for, and the last Korean S rank, Sung Jinwoo. Jinwoo went from being the weakest hunter of mankind to the strongest being in existence, literally. As after he got the system during the Double Dungeon, Jinwoo got the ability to continue to level up, meaning Jinwoo's power had no limit. He could become infinitely stronger, and because of that, Jinwoo eventually became known as humanity's greatest hunter. He also became the new Shadow Monarch, inheriting the position from Ashbourne, who chose Jinwoo as his successor, which meant his power became even greater. But what was Jin Woo's goal with all of this power? Well, at first, he only wanted to cure his mother from her eternal slumber. So after curing her, he was thinking about retiring from being a hunter to live a quiet and happy life with her and Jin-ae. But yeah, that didn't last long, as Jin Woo had to save the Korean S ranks from the Ant King, and in doing so, he actually found a new purpose: to save everyone. So, although Jin Woo of course loves the thrill of battle, Jin Woo only fights to protect the people that he loves and to protect the innocent people of the world. Now getting out of Korea, let's talk about the Japanese S-rank hunters, starting with none other than Godu Yugi. Godu was Japan's strongest hunter and the guildmaster of the Draw Sword Guild. So this guy was an absolute beast, crazy fast, insanely strong, and during his sparring match with Jin Woo, he actually managed to cut Jin Woo's skin with his bare hands. And honestly, there's even a case to be made that Godu might have been the strongest human, not monarch or vassal in the entire series. But sadly, he didn't live up to the hype, as when he finally stepped into a real battle during the Jeju Island raid, the Ant King two-shot at him like it was nothing. So yeah, Big L. Anyway, let's keep it going with the other Japanese S-rank hunters from the 4th Jeju Island raid, starting with Akari Shimizu. Akari was a powerful healer, although we never actually got to see her use her powers. Why? Well, because she straight up refused to heal anyone unless they paid her first. Yeah, she wasn't exactly a team player. She also had a little crush on her guildmate Kenzo, but sadly, she never got the chance to tell him as she lost her head during the raid literally. Talking about Kenzo, he's up next. Kenzo was a fighter-type S-rank hunter who absolutely lived for battle. Even Godu recognized him as one of Japan's strongest. He was a total brute with insane physical strength, and he easily dominated Dongwook and Yunho in sparring matches. And during the 4th Jeju Island raid, he went wild, slaughtering hundreds of ants while barely taking a scratch. But sadly, just like Akari, he literally lost his head to the Ant King before even throwing a punch. Alongside Akari and Kenzo, we also had Tatsumi Fujishima. Tatsumi was a chill and confident guy, someone who clearly trusted his guildmates and deeply cared about them. He was definitely the strong hunter. We even saw him carrying a sword at Jeju Island, slicing the ants with ease. But when trying to chase down the Ant King to take revenge for Kenzo and Akari, he got one shot, just like the others. Next up, we've got Kei. Just like Kenzo, Godu considered Kei one of Japan's. Before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Apply grow naturally. Strongest S-rank hunters. He was a mage who specialized in ice magic, using it to freeze enemies in an instant or create massive ice walls for defense, like when he tried to block an attack from the Ant King. But yeah, the Ant King still one-shot him like it was nothing. Also, fun fact, Kei has an enhanced sense of mana just like Cha, but way worse. It's actually so bad that he has to wear a mask during raids or he'll get sick. We literally see him throwing up just from sensing the Ant King's mana through the mask. Moving on, we've got Aipazawa, one of the strongest assassins in the entire world. And man, I wish we got to see how broken this guy really was, but nope, we never actually see him fight. Why? Well, because just like the others, he got one shot by the Ant King. So instead, let's talk about Mary Ishida. She might not look like it, but Ishida was a true damage dealer and part of Japan's S-rank squad. That said, just like Hype, we never actually get to see her in action. And yeah, you guessed it, she also got one shot by the Ant King before she even had the chance to fight, taken out instantly while grouped up with Godu and Hoshino. Talking about Minoru Hoshino, he's up next. Hoshino was one of the Japanese S-rank hunters who actually survived the whole Jeju Island mess. As a fighter-type hunter, even Godu recognized him as one of the strongest, and we clearly saw his strength when he manhandled Teju, slamming him into a wall. On top of his strength, the guy was crazy fast, dodging Lim's magical arrows at close range like it was nothing. So after surviving Jeju Island, he kept going strong as a hunter and continued working with the Draw Sword Guild. Continuing with the Japanese S-ranks who survive the 4th Jeju Island raid, next up is Kanai Tawada. Kanai is a serious and no-nonsense type who really cares about her team. She's a solid fighter-type hunter, but during her sparring match with She got totally outpaced and lost thanks to Cha's insane speed. But just like Hoshino, Kunai kept doing her thing as a hunter and stayed active with the Draw Sword Guild. Now, to the last surviving Japanese S rank from the Jeju Island raid, Atsushi Kumamoto. At first glance, this guy seems like a total coward. He freaks out easily, even when he's not in real danger, and in battle, he tends to go after the weakest enemy, usually from behind. But yeah, all of that changes when he goes berserk, because whenever Kumamoto takes damage, he enters a frenzied state and just loses it. We saw this firsthand when Cha accidentally punched him in the face, as he then punched a massive hole in the gym floor, and was moving so fast he almost landed a hit on Cha. And yeah, he absolutely would have, if Jinwoo hadn't stepped in to block him. Anyway, in his berserk state, he's easily one of the strongest S-rank hunters out there. Now, there's actually one more Japanese S-rank hunter we need to talk about, Reiji Sugimoto. Reiji became the guild master of the Draw Sword Guild after Godu Yuji's death, and during the 4th Jeju Island raid, he was stationed on one of the battleships, making sure everything ran smoothly. Reiji is a smart and strategic guy who usually isn't on the battlefield, as his brain is his biggest asset, usually instead playing a very important role behind the scenes. Leaving the Japanese S-ranks behind, let's talk about Yuri Orlov. Orlov was a Russian, mage-type hunter who specialized in barrier magic, and yeah, these barrier spells were insanely powerful. He once restrained both Hoshino and Kunai with zero effort, and he even once created a massive barrier that could fully seal off an S-rank gate and keep itself sustained. But powers aside, Orlov is arrogant, always drunk, and a total jerk. So although he's one of the strongest S-rank hunters, he's definitely not a good guy. But hey, he's still way better than this next guy, Hwang Dansu. Dansu was a Korean S-rank hunter who moved to the US and joined the Scavenger Guild, and yep, he's the younger brother of Hwang Dansu. And just like his brother, he was an absolute murderous meathead with no respect for human life at all. As a hunter, though, Dansu was all about brute strength, super tanky, and hit like a truck, so he was honestly one of the strongest S-ranks in the world. But once he found out Jinwoo had killed his brother Dansu, he completely lost it and became obsessed with revenge. So his life's mission literally became to kill Jinwoo. And, well, it didn't even stop after getting absolutely wrecked by Jinwoo's dad. So when they finally faced off, yeah, Jinwoo straight up demolished him. He didn't even have a chance. Moving on, we've got Jay Mills, the strongest hunter in Canada and ranked 17th in the world. While it's never officially confirmed, he was probably a tank since he wore heavy armor during the raid against Antares, the Monarch of Destruction. Just like these other two, Jay thought he was untouchable, had zero respect, and literally called himself the king. So again, another strong but overconfident and stupid S-rank. Now, let's talk about Leonard Nierman. Unlike Jay, Leonard's actually super polite and patient, even though he's the strongest hunter in Germany and ranked 12th in the entire world. So yeah, this guy is no joke. Leonard stands out as he has an ability called Charge, which lets him summon these glowing teal gauntlets on his arms that let him fire off massive energy blasts, and they're also strong enough to blind and disorient monsters like the beast monarch, Rakan, and considering how insane Rakan's power is, that's wild. Oh, and Leonard was also the only one who could actually see Jinwoo's entire shadow army hiding inside his shadow. But yeah, it freaked him out so bad. But honestly, I get it. The final S-rank hunter we got to talk about is Jonas. Jonas was the strongest hunter in Brazil, and he ranked 6th in the world. He was also a vassal of a ruler, which means he was crazy strong. Unfortunately, we never actually got to see him in action, as although he had an insane fight, it happened entirely off-screen, which is pretty sad, honestly. Now finally, we've made it to the national level hunters, the 5 absolute strongest hunters of the solo leveling world. And first up, we got to talk about the strongest of them all, Thomas Anray. Thomas was an absolute unit, literally known as the Goliath, and he was the strongest hunter in America and ranked number 1 in the entire world. And with his signature move, Reinforcement, where he covers himself in golden armor, he cranks his already ridiculous defense and attack up to god tier levels. The guy was so tough that Jinwoo literally bruised his hands just from punching him. And even though he had a cocky attitude, Thomas wasn't a bad guy. Like, after he fought Jinwoo, he had nothing but respect for him, and from that moment on, Thomas became one of Jinwoo's strongest allies, showing time and time again why he's one of the strongest in the world. Next up, we've got Liu Zhigang. Zhigang is China's strongest hunter and ranked second in the world. He's a master swordsman with insane speed, and we literally see him slice a giant into pieces like it's nothing, and his signature move, Energy Slash, lets him fire off massive waves of energy just by swinging his sword, easily wiping out an entire swarm of flying ants from Jeju. Unlike some arrogant hunters, Zhigang was humble and respected true strength, as after seeing Jinwoo's strength when he fought Thomas, Zhigang straight up said that Jinwoo was worlds above him in strength and anyone who disagreed was a fool. And even though we don't see him in many fights, he's one of the most dangerous hunters in the world. Now, let's talk about Christopher Reed. Reed was the second strongest hunter in America and ranked third in the entire world. His ability, spiritual body manifestation led him transform himself into a flaming one-eyed monster. And his fire was so intense it took 14 S-rank hunters just to put it out. I mean, just look at him, terrifying. However, just like Zhigang, we don't see Reed all that much in the series, but still, he's one of the strongest in the world. And finally, we've got Siddharth Bachchan. But yeah, we literally don't even know what this guy looks like. However, we do know a few things. For example, he is the strongest hunter in India and ranked 4th in the entire world. On top of that, Siddharth has a bit of a savior complex. He is the type to jump in and protect people, even if they didn't ask for help. Now, I know I said there was 5 national level hunters, but we literally know nothing about the 5th one, which is why he's not included. Also, I know there are a ton more hunters in the series like this tank, this assassin, and many more. But as we don't know their ranks, name, or anything, they aren't included. And there you guys have it. That was every single known hunter in solo leveling. Who is your favorite hunter? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and watch this video next. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Amazing Apai. Subscribing makes sure you do not miss the next video, and it gives me motivation to keep improving the quality of every upload. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.